So helicopter is not helicopter, it's helicopter. So helico is like the spinning wheel or the spinning blades, and the pater is the flying.
Ah. And so things like Batcopter don't make any sense.
Yeah, right. It should be Batpater. Welcome to Bat Lessons, the Batman History Podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Alex.
And today we're talking about Absolute Batman issue number 4.
Yes. Do you have any spoiler-free thoughts before we jump right in?
Spoiler free is a little tough.
Yeah.
I think kind of similar to last time, more setup, but I thought it was interesting how it was like a lot of flashback stuff.
Yeah, very different in sort of tone. So
Very different, yes.
speaking of that, you're still kind of a new comic reader. What did you
Yeah.
think, now that we're jumping into spoilers, what did you think about the fact that this is kind of different?
I will say
Yeah.
I did not realize it was a different artist.
Okay, yeah.
And I was reading through it, and the art style is very obviously different.
It is very
And
different.
I kept thinking that this all happened in his head. Like there's the parts where you see
Sure.
like the first shots of Batman, and
Yeah.
he was talking to himself about it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like he's imagining these scenarios. He's trying to imagine
Sure.
what Batman should be like.
Yeah.
And was going, oh no, that's not going to work. And oh no, that's not going to work.
Right.
and then it cut to, or it jumped to another section that was obviously not in his head.
Yeah.
And it had the same style. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to reframe everything I've just read. It happened.
So I think it's hard to know for sure why they changed artists, but usually the reason that you would change artists for a creative team book. So sometimes there are books where it's very clearly like there's a writer and then they just have different artists coming through, right?
Yeah.
Especially if they're like double shipping a book, like Tom King's Batman. It was very normal for like one story arc to be like Lee Weeks, and then another story arc was like Jorge Jimenez, and then another story arc. And so they just had different artists coming through. And the reason you do that, right, is because it's hard to draw a whole comic book in a month, right? And so
Oh, sure.
a lot of times on lower profile books, or even books that are shipping more often or whatever, the art's kind of always changing. But on a big book like this, where like Nick Dragotta and Scott Snyder are headlining, and it's very clear that like they are co-creators on this book.
Yeah.
The reason you would change, if I was guessing, I don't know, that like they intentionally said there's not going to be any present day stuff, right? We're going to do a whole issue that's all flashback because we're going to have a different artist. We're going to give Nick time to catch up or whatever. And so the different tone will go well with the different art, right? And so the different story style. And that's why they did it. How did you find it? Does it bother you, or do you mind, or?
No, I don't like it as much.
Sure.
I will say, like,
Yeah.
I definitely do like more the crisper style. I did do like a double take. I pulled out number 3 to like re-look at it to compare the art styles, and I like the art style we've been seeing from Dragotta more.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't mind it.
Yeah.
It's just a little grainier. It's a little rougher.
It's sketchy. Very
sketchy,
pencil-y,
yeah. And I think it works. It does remind me of some of the like the early Golden Age stuff that we saw. It kind of reminds me of the early Ninja Turtle stuff. Also.
Yeah.
But with color.
I'm glad you took it in stride. When I very first started reading comic books, the first like big run I ran is like a historic, famous run for having a writer-artist duo. I did Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley. And
Cool.
they did like 120 issues together or something like that. And I remember every time there was a different artist for like a half issue or for a couple pages, or I was like pissed. I was like, this is the worst. Why would they do that? You know? And there will be people who get upset about this sort of thing, right? And it can affect sales and things like that. So that being said, it's super common. Like this happens all the time in comic books. And I think this is about the best way you can handle it, right? Which is like, okay, we're going to have a different artist. Let's do something a little bit tonally different. Let's do something that fits that style better and have a different type of story. But interestingly, still part 4 or 5. So very intentional, very, very intentional. It wasn't like, sometimes with this sort of thing, you can tell especially when it happens like mid-issue. Like it'll be like 20 pages and then page 21 and 22 is someone else. And you're like, oh.
They got a pinch hitter, right?
Right, to like get this book out on time. This is not that. So in this issue, there's like 3 storylines and we keep jumping back and forth between them. I didn't perfectly like this is we're gonna go through it somewhat chronological, but we might do some stuff out of order. We open to a courtroom, and we learn that Bruce has asked to give a statement to the court before Joe Chill does. Not super clear exactly what's going on. Seems like a trial where he's being tried for the shooting at the zoo. That's all we get as exposition at first.
Yeah, it's interesting because you hear the judge say, "Okay, we're letting you do this thing. Extraordinary circumstances, quite unusual.
Yeah,
what do you got to say?" You know, and they do highlight that he is speaking ahead of. I mean, it's essentially in terms of trials, like they've already got a conviction, and Bruce is going to say something before the convicted Joe Chill has a chance to address the court.
Interesting. So you're reading this as like a pre-sentencing thing, maybe? I don't know if I got that personally, but
yeah, that's how I read it, because it does say you requested to speak first.
Yes.
So Mr. Chill is prepared to give a statement, and so I'm assuming that it's not before the trial begins, but after conviction has happened, and he's
right. Like it wouldn't be a statement; it would be testimony if it was pre.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah, and so usually they've got like victim statements or things like that, or an opportunity for like the convicted to say "I'm sorry" or something like that.
Gotcha.
I'm thinking that's this part of the trial.
Okay,
that's how...
You're more into true crime stuff than I am. So
I'm not a lawyer though.
No, sure. So that's plotline number 1. Plotline number 2, I think we spend the bulk of the issue in this, like 70% or more, is early Batman. But I take it this is what you thought was like a dream or something.
Yeah, it looks really different. He's like his glowing eyes, and he's got like the teeth and stuff.
Yeah, it's vampire Batman. He actually goes and bites someone on the neck with the teeth.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, it was a little bit of an eye roll for me. It wasn't. I agree, it wasn't clear whether this was actually happening or when it was happening or why it was happening. But when it was in the moment, I was like, "What is this? I'm not."
I was just surprised. I mean, so on the next page, when he attacks the dudes, he bites someone, and then he slashes another guy. It looks like he slashes his jugular with like Wolverine claws, essentially.
Yeah,
and that's where I was very much like, this can't be happening.
Sure.
Like, he's killing a dude, he's biting a guy. Like, that's just like tactically not a smart thing to be like biting criminals all the time.
Sure, yeah.
And then not because of DNA, but like you don't know where they've been, you know,
or DNA, both.
Yeah,
but
so yeah, that all of that was kind of strange to me.
Yeah,
and his eyes are red. Like even you see at the bottom right there, his eyes. It's like he's kind of like got those Anakin Sith eyes, where his like eyes are red and his like irises are yellow. It's very strange.
Yeah.
So I did not think it was real.
Yeah. Later, they say he does face paint. I assume they're contacts. They didn't say, but
yeah. And he pulls the teeth out and he throws them away. I guess they have like venom in them.
Yes, yeah. They say it's like it knocks them out or something. This is also very clearly meant to be kind of a Golden Age homage.
Yeah.
The ears are crooked, kind of like the old Golden Age.
Yes.
Cal was, and he pulls the gun, which is kind of a Golden Age thing. I don't know if you have any thoughts on Absolute Batman having a gun.
Just, I don't know. Like, I think at this point, like I said, it just didn't seem real. It seemed like a fever dream or something weird was going on. And then later when they kind of describe how he's like, no, this didn't work. I don't like that.
Right. Almost immediately.
Yeah. You get this idea that it's like, he had no idea what he was doing.
Yes.
You know, and it helps kind of contextualize like how far he's come, even at the point of like issue 1.
Yeah.
Because he's got so much more strategy.
Right. Like we were saying earlier in the book club that like we thought we were very early in Batman's career, and I think we are, but clearly there's some amount of time between what the story we've been following in present day and this like early Absolute Batman, and how long that is, I don't know. Like it could be 6 months, it could be 6 years, right? But yeah, he has this debrief where he's like, this was the wrong call. Like, this was the wrong idea for numerous reasons. One, because he doesn't like the get up. He doesn't like the biting, and he doesn't like the gun. By the way, you can't destroy a gun like this.
No, I thought that too. I was like, yeah, what an idiot.
Yeah, if you put a gun in a fire, first off, the bullets are gonna discharge.
Yeah,
because the gunpowder is gonna go off, and secondly, the gun's probably not gonna melt because it's not gonna get that hot. So,
no.
Yeah, kind of dumb.
Best case scenario is it has no serial number and it just burns off all of the like DNA evidence and stuff, but and fingerprints and whatnot. But still, this is not how you get rid of a gun.
And then he says that it's not wrong just in terms of tactics, right? But it's also in terms of like what he's doing. So like what he's breaking up is this protection racket, and it's like small time goons. And he says that he's like, this is gonna scare some people on the street. Like maybe, I'm gonna take care of like 10 goons, but then there's gonna be 100 more in their place. So like, how can I think bigger, right?
Yeah.
He talks a little bit about this. I forget what they called it, like orange. You've got the text in front of you. It's OBS. He called it an OBS.
Oh, and it's the Orange Blossom Special. They talked
Orange
about
Blossom
that.
Special. Yes, that's what I was trying to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, he talks about how the drugs and the guns that are like plaguing the city are all coming through a racket that's run by the Maronis and the Falcones. So call back to year one, and they're using semis, trucks full of citrus, right?
Well, so they're talking about the Orange Blossom Special, which I think is a train. So in history, the Orange Blossom Special is real, and it is a train.
Okay,
and
I didn't know that.
There's actually like songs about the Orange Blossom Special. It's old. It was like it ran from Miami to New York. It was a passenger train, not an orange container train.
Okay.
And it was, let's see, it ran from 1925 to 1953. And it was touted as the first all electric train.
Interesting.
Which there's a technicality there. It's really like a hybrid. It's got diesel engines that charge batteries, and the discharge of those batteries is the electric part that turns the wheels. But Orange Blossom Special was like a real train. The timing is kind of interesting because it also kind of is the timing for Golden Age stuff. But it could also totally be that they're ripping the name as like a shorthand or a, what do you call it? Like a nickname for this truck.
It is, yeah. So the materials come up. It says the material comes up in produce trucks because weight records are less exact. Citrus mostly. They say the guns smell like oranges when they fire, right? So, yeah, they're semi trucks. Because then, in the next thing that happens in the flashback is he's trying to disrupt the semi trucks, right? So here's the Orange Blossom.
It is kind of a cool sequence. So there's this car that's got that kind of the same setup as like at the end of issue 3, where they're driving fast, and it's like the wheels have shifted out to be wide, right?
Sure.
And it's got this big vroom. You see it right here, and then like the perspective shifts, and you realize it's not big, it's tiny.
Yes.
And it drives up underneath this semi truck, and these guys are driving, just kind of like talking about stuff, and then in their headlights is Batman just standing there. Yeah. And they're like, what the? and Batman just pulls out this little thing, clicks it. And it's kind of interesting. Like, I know enough about mechanical stuff. I don't know what this RC car just did, but it like blows up in a way that shoves the back end of the truck or of the trailer up into the roof of this tunnel or under a bridge or whatever it is, which you see on the next page. It's all jacked up.
Yeah, he calls it a bottle jack, an RC Roadster loaded with 4,600 kV. I don't know if that's like kilovolts or something.
Maybe.
Some black paint. So I assume a bottle jack is a thing. Maybe that's a bottle. Maybe.
Bottle jacks are a thing.
Okay.
For sure. They're about yay big, but they're like, usually they're hydraulic.
Right.
Yeah, so
to do something like this, I don't know.
I can hand wave all this away, but what I see here doesn't make sense to me, and it's it's fine, whatever. Bottle jack in an RC car, fine.
You know those emergency life vests where you pull the thing and it goes boom, and it uses like
it's like an airbag.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it's made out of Kevlar and like some sort of explosion. I don't know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
but that's okay. So yeah, he's disrupting the trade, or the import of drugs and guns.
But the important point here, I think, it's two parts. The one you just said, where he's instead of taking out a couple of dudes, he's dealing with the import export, which is upstream, right?
Yes.
It's more impactful.
Yeah.
The other thing is he's saying, I made this RC car that explodes, that does all this. It's under $1,000. It's economical.
Sure.
Which I think also makes like a different point of how like dressing up and having a gun and like getting in your face wasn't quite as effective as just having this technology help him out and do it for him.
Totally.
And it also kind of speaks to how he doesn't have like a ton of money.
Right.
Because if this was like rich Batman, he wouldn't be talking about the cost of putting this jerry-rigging this thing together.
Yeah.
So there's like a couple of things that are like sneakily put in there.
Yeah.
To describe like where he's at and how his strategy is evolving.
And then we get the third storyline. So the third storyline is him working on. This is before he's won the science fair thing, right? This is before he's won the competition, and he's working on the project that will win it for him. And it's an engineering project. He's building a bat-themed bridge, and he's having conversations back and forth with his dad about it. It's kind of interesting. There's some themes in there that are sprinkled in about like, trying to make it like a bat who's, adaptable, right? It's a mammal that flies. Go ahead.
It's like a love letter to bats a little bit.
It is,
like it's just describing how amazing bats are and how they're the only mammal that flies, and there's more species of bats than any other mammal except for rats, I think, or something. And just all this cool stuff about bats. I don't even know if anything that he's saying is true.
Sure.
There might be a second mammal that flies that I don't know about.
Sure.
I don't know.
It sounds right.
Yeah, the veracity is questionable, but believable for a comic book. Whatever. It's a different universe. Who knows?
I think it's true. I'm going to Google it.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was true. I'm just saying I didn't check, and I'm willing to just believe it.
Flying squirrels, sugar gliders, colugos.
They don't really fly though, but
feather-tail gliders, greater. It was pretty much just bats, I think. They're descended from pterodactyls and pterosaurs.
Oh, fun fact: the PTER, the ptera, is from the Greek for feather or wing. And so pterosaur is like winged dinosaur, essentially. So helicopter is not helicopter, it's helicopter. So helico is like the spinning wheel or the spinning blades, and the pter is the flying.
And so things like batcopter don't make any sense.
Yeah, right. It should be batpter.
Okay, noted. So, and they're setting up a parallel here, right? So, we have the Batman sort of taking his first steps, figuring out his costumes, figuring out his MO, figuring out his tactics. We have the son iterating on the bridge, and the father walking him through that. He says, "I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing," and the dad says, like, that's life. You gotta, sometimes you think it's gonna be one thing and then it's gonna be another. I wanted to be a doctor. It turned out to be a teacher. It was a different way to do the same goal. I was trying to like help kids not have to deal with traumatic things because he lost his dad to a heart attack, right?
But there is a, like, I don't know if synchronicity is the right word here, but it's like it's the same thing happening again. Like Thomas Wayne is talking about how traumatic it was to see his dad die at a young age out in public, and how frightening that was. And that's like exactly what happens to Bruce, except in a more violent
100%. Yeah. His dad's saying, like, I was trying to choose a career path about like what to do with my adult life, maybe a doctor, maybe a teacher, to like help kids because I was a kid in this tough situation. And that's the parallel with Bruce. He's trying to figure out what to do to, like, with this traumatic experience to like prevent it. He's almost like reliving his dad's sort of experience. So it's very much a parallel there. The flashback we probably get the least of, we get another flashback to it here, is the one in the courtroom, and they wrap it up in like 3 pages. It's not very much. Basically, the gist of the speech that he gives is, I was super happy on that day. My dad was proud of me. That felt so good. We were at the zoo. All of my friends were there because I won. And it was awesome. I knew that I was never going to be more happy than this, and you took it from me. So I hate you. like die in a fire.
Yeah.
Right. He's just yelling at Joe Chill.
Yeah. He says, there's nothing I want to hear from you. There's nothing I'm not even going to stick around for that part of it. I'm going first. I'm telling you how pissed I am. And I hope you die in hell or burn in hell. And I'm out of here. Yeah. And there's, you can hear the judge who's like, Mr. Wayne, as if to say like, this is not appropriate. Yeah. This is not what I thought you were going to do.
You can't do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
After the sort of like disrupting the train, the OBS truck.
Yeah.
Bruce has a sort of a step back and he's like, no, man, like I need to think bigger, because he has this sort of moment of realization that he needs to not just be targeting the criminals, right, and the crime with this sort of Batman figure. Mm-hmm. It's about the people as well. So we have this sequence with him where he gets on his motorcycle and he drives across the country and he sees all kinds of things, right? He sees people in different walks of life. There's the miners that are, working hard, and the people in the, town that's shut down. All the we get this cute little downtown with like all of these shops that have gone out of business. And then he's in front of the Amazon warehouse, right?
Oh, nice. On the Amazon warehouse?
Yeah, that's 100% what
you're right. You're totally
here.
Right. This got the little smiley face thing. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah. We get a look inside a data center, and then there's a protest. Pretty clearly supposed to be like BLM protest or something like that. Yeah. And then we've got people at a gun show buying guns. And I don't recall exactly what the dialogue here is, but he's saying things like people feel let down by their leaders, right? That's what they're talking about with the protests. People are afraid of each other, and they're hunkering down and they're drawing away from each other. And that's what we're talking about with the guns. And like, the computers are making us lonely. The giant corporations are putting small businesses out of business. There's all of these sort of fears and anxieties, and people are becoming worse versions of themselves because they don't have a thing to believe in. Right. And so it's very much a similar message to what we got from the Batman, the Matt Reeves movie, where it's like, I can't just be vengeance, right? I can't just stop the crime. I have to give them something to believe in. I have to be a symbol, right? Like I have to speak to not just about fear, right, but about hope. They don't say that explicitly.
Yeah. Well, but also like just a moment of vulnerability. Like I relate to everything that he's talking about. Yeah. Like I have these anxieties. Yeah. I am not happy with the world right now.
Yeah.
For everything that's in these panels.
Yeah. And it's a very cogent sort of analysis of like, no one here per se is wrong for feeling the way they do, because the world is kind of messed up, right?
Yeah.
But those feelings obviously are having negative consequences, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, how can you socially turn the ship, right? And the reality is that it's probably not Batman, right? You can't do that in real life. These are very, very real problems that we're dealing with socially, right? Batman's an imaginary story, but I think I think it's the fact that like we're trying to speak to it, right, and put a voice to how people are feeling. This is obviously, to me, the best part of this issue, and maybe one of the best parts of the series. I think the sort of like ripped from the headlines nature of like making Bruce's origin a mass shooting is bold and it's of the moment, but it hasn't yet, to me, spoken to it on a deeper level. It's sort of a surface like, this is a thing that happens and that's scary. Isn't that scary to you? This is sort of a deeper analysis, right? Where we're taking a step back and we're saying like, what's going on with the world that causes something like a mass shooting, right?
Right.
And so we're starting to cash some of the checks, which is great. Doesn't always happen in comic books. So very, very strong moment for me, for sure.
Yeah, totally.
And then we get a really cool, this is the Iron Man 1 sequence, right?
Yeah.
Where Tony's like putting on the suit for the first time and he tells the computer to record. Bruce literally does the same thing. Like he says into the ether, record.
Yeah.
And he's working on the technology of a suit. They call him bat thumbs.
Which is exactly what we said in the ash can.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know bat anatomy, they have these wings, and at the peaks of their wings, they've got little digits in their thumbs, because the rest of the wings are their fingers. I don't know if you can see that, but it's wing, thumb. And so it's their thumb, and the rest of the wings are really just like big, long fingers that are webbed that allow them to fly. So we called it from the ash can.
We did.
We're coming in. We nailed it.
And it's just a really cool moment because it's a tone poem. It's speaking to the things that just came before. Like he's seeing the nation, he's seeing the people, he's saying what needs to happen in this moment. How can I be an answer to this problem? I'm going to be bigger. I'm going to be a symbol, right?
Right.
And it's the sort of like, yeah, Iron Man 1, Ocean's 11, putting together the team, coming up with the plan, right?
Yeah.
Moment that is it's showing us an answer, not telling, which is great.
Yeah.
There's also a sequence in here where he's like lifting weights. This is where he becomes the Batman who's jacked.
Right.
Because in the previous sequences, he's kind of scrawny, right?
So like in the origins that we did in a previous episode, talked about how he like went to Korea and he worked with the FBI and all this stuff to like hone his skills and stuff. I saw a parallel to that, not just in the previous issues where we've talked about him working in all the different industries of like city development and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as he drove across the country and he saw all those different people, it did remind me of this big like sojourn that Batman always goes on now.
But instead of around the world, it's around the country.
Right.
Instead of like seeking out, monks and ninjas and whatever, it's like he's getting on his motorcycle and he's doing it on his own. It's a little punk rock in that way. It's kind of cool. And again, the parallel to that in the flashback where he's building sort of the last version of his bridge. He as a child is saying the exact same things. He's realizing it has to not just be about the animal, the bat. It doesn't have to just be about like the landscape where it's like crossing the river. It has to be about the people. So like theoretically, this is going to be going to a country where it's like war torn and like people are in despair. And he's like, he designs it in a way to be symbolic for them, but also like have social involvement. So like it deploys, it flies in, and then they have to assemble it. Like they put the bridge wherever they want it to be, right? And they feel ownership and they feel proud of it because it's not just giving them something, it's helping them build something. And they can decide. The idea is that there's like it gives those people like autonomy and gives those people license because it could be for defense. It could be for offense. They said it could be for. It's a cool idea. I don't know if it was delivered in the like most believable way or the most to me like there's a point where there's like saw blades on one of the things.
Yeah,
I'm trying to imagine. Like a bridge with saw blades.
Secret saw blades for those hard to reach places.
How does that work? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's where it lost me. I was like, what do you mean saw blades?
But it's a cool idea, and it's very Scott Snyder of like he's got a really neat idea, and it's from the heart clearly, right? Of like how do you make a bridge that is a symbol, right? And how does it parallel what Bruce is doing in the future? So,
well, there's also like the further idea because you see here he's like holding it up and it looks like a bat, and he's saying it you can drop him out of planes and stuff, and it would be kind of cool to think about like people out in the world where things are destitute or like they're depressing or whatever, and their symbol of hope is a bat symbol falling out of the sky, which they're going to be able to use as a bridge or whatever. And so there's marketing for Batman all over this idea, which is really cool.
Not just Batman, the absolute Batman. It's got the origami folds look like the thumbs, right?
Oh his totally
cape. So
no, but I mean like in the universe. Like the people who are seeing it fall as like the thing that's going to help them is Batman. They'll be able to be like, oh, Batman is the symbol of hope everywhere in the world, even if the dude lives far away. Yeah.
We cut back to early absolute Batman. So, and we spend the rest of the issue with this. Brian, do you know what this page is an allusion to?
I believe that it's year one.
This is year one.
Okay, because he even says the line, you've eaten well.
Yes, right? Exactly. Yes. The art, the poses, the what's happening, right? He's watching them have the dinner party. He says that they've eaten well. The huevos it takes to homage year one in this way, it's a swing. This is, not a lot of people have the confidence to be able to do that sort of thing. Scott Snyder didn't have the confidence to do this sort of thing. When he was asked to do a new origin for Batman in 0 Year for New 52, he's on the record about this, done tons of interviews. And I apologize if I'm not characterizing this quite correctly. He's on the record saying like, can I not replace year one? Like, can it be like a yes and like?
Yeah, I remember you talking about this actually. Yeah.
I'm gonna do a new origin, and year one also happened, and it's kind of adjacent, and because you're like, who's gonna touch year one, right? Like, it's one of the.
It's like I can't compete with that. Like,
right. Yeah. And so this is an homage to a moment that it's, to me, it stands a little bit. There's ones like the bats flying through the window that's been homaged over and over and over and over again.
Right.
And it is more symbolic and less thematic. And this is an homage that we get far less frequently, where it's like not just symbolic, but also thematic. It's the same beat in a different story. And I love it. I think it's great. I wish they went even further. Like there's the art of him in front, like all the lights are out and he's in front of the table with the candles or whatever. And the fire. We don't actually see the moment.
I disagree.
Oh, okay.
Because I think this is like describing a similar problem, because like year one is 1989, I think.
Yeah.
And so there was a challenge in the world socially at that time where something like that would be thematic of the moment.
Yeah.
There's a problem now that's really similar, that's thematic, but this is a different Batman who doesn't come in, blow the doors wide open and scare them all. He's being very strategic. He's saying like, I bugged this place so I could listen to everything they're talking about. I hear the deals that they're making.
Yeah.
And they're not even trying to debug this place because they don't have to worry about it. They're so high up on the food chain, they don't have to worry about it. And he says, it took all I could do not to blow the windows off this place.
Is that so? Hold on. Let me go back and read it again, because that's not how I remember reading it. But I thought I was reading that he was going to do it in a second.
It says, well, maybe I misread that.
Yeah, not to mention the thermal coil that'll flash heat the gold to 150 degrees in a moment. Just hot enough we get to watch everyone dance for once, even if only for a second.
Okay. But he says it takes everything in my body not to bust through the skylight and put him in the dance floor.
Yes.
Right.
So he doesn't have the year one moment where he comes in and he's putting himself front and center and he's scaring them. But he is going to disrupt it. He is going to.
Okay.
So it is slightly different. You're right. This also feels very of the moment, ripped from the headlines. Honestly, as it's coming out, I cannot believe how on the nose it is, knowing that like Scott Snyder had to have written the script at least a month or two ago, Yeah. So like, not to get too much into like current events and politics or whatever, but like there's a billionaire who bought off, this regulatory agency. There's a billionaire who bought off this, and there's it's just corruption of like, billionaires who are getting what they want from the government. And this is the absolute Batman's going to think big enough to like take care of them too. And then we get, triumphantly, splash page, not in front of the moon, in front of like, I don't know, a searchlight or something. It's really cool.
It's a police helicopters.
Oh yeah. I must have prepped that out. He looked opters.
It's a different page, but yeah. So what makes a bad is at its core for me is that it defies the impossible, and he's being chased by these helicopters and he jumps off, and this is the shot.
Yeah.
The full page shot. And then the final page is pretty interesting because it's the bookends. It comes full circle on chewing out Joe Chill. And then he's here back talking to Joe Chill and saying, well, you had something to say?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you remember in issue 1, we see him going to the prison to visit Joe Chill.
That's right.
Yes.
So
it ties it all together. It ties the beginning of this issue to the end to what we've seen. And now there's intrigue. Like there was intrigue before about like, why is he going to visit Joe Chill? What's happening there? What are they saying?
Yes.
And now I really want to know, right? Like what's Joe Chill have to say to Bruce?
Especially after Bruce said, I hate you. I hope you burn in hell, right? Like
I don't want to know what you have to say, right?
Yeah. So what's going on here?
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. And how many issues are in the zoo?
I think 5 is what they said. So I think there's only one more for the story arc. Yeah.
Got to wrap up the zoo before hopefully we get another 5 after that.
Oh, definitely. They've said that Nick and Scott were committed to at least 2 years.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And now that's if the book sells. Like, obviously books can get
Sure.
canceled before then, but it's going to. Yeah, this is the most successful book of the year. Any closing thoughts?
I'd say this one was also a slow burn. It's similar to 3. It's a lot of setup, but I'm hopeful that 5 just blows our socks off.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to see how it ends. This is, for me, probably my favorite issue so far. This is more my speed. I like the sort of like tone poem comics where it's about the foundations. It's elemental. It's thematic. It's less like, to be honest with you, I don't need the plot to like be moving forward constantly. Like, he's gonna get Black Mask at the end. Spoilers. And so like it's the journey is the destination for me, and this is the meat. Not to say that I'm not interested to see how it goes, but this is why I read comics. This issue.
Yeah. I mean, I am a big fan of the movies that people sleep through, but like the ones that are slower and they do more of the like character development to give you an idea of like what their motivation is or what's going through their head. And that's what these issues have been doing.
Yeah.
So it's not a ton of action, but it's still very good.
Yeah.
Hey, Bat Fam. Hope you like the show. Please like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. Stickers. We got them. Great way to support the show. They're $5, and you can find a link in the description and on batlessons.com. To keep on rolling, watch this video.